So hello. Previously we talked about the general. We talked about the first interface we meet, and now we are going to be talking about the tools on the left hand side here. So I'm going to be taking care of all these tools, excluding the top ones. So yeah, we are going to be looking into these ones. So now we need to start with the modes. So we have different modes for different things. When you have now, let me start with objects. Let me just start with that. So adding is adding different set of things which are which range from mesh to curves to surfaces to metaballs to text to volume to grace pencil to the armature lattice. All these things are useful when doing 3D work, and we usually all start from mesh. So everything is made up of mesh and mesh and mesh mostly. So now um we need to first of all show you plane. So here is a plane. It's always now the rule behind this adding this thing is, you see there is this cursor in the middle here that is always looks like it's fixed. It's always with this red and white sort of thing. It never gets bigger, it never gets smaller. It's always the same no matter the view. It gets bigger, it gets, no matter how you zoom in, zoom out. Now if you've used the middle mouse button like I said you should do, zoom in and zoom out, you'll be able to know that I am using the middle mouse button right now to go around. So here is a plane. So now a plane consists of several things. A plane consists of a point. This is a point. This thing here is a point. Now a plane consists of 2 points, makes an edge. So the edge connects 2 points. Then multiple points makes up a polygon. So you can have a triangle from this, you can have a square from this, you can have several things, and polygon makes up a full model. People manipulate polygon into several shapes to be able to form models like a jar, human characters, and every other part. So let's move on from there. So now, sorry, I forgot to tell you. So now the mesh has just a few, modes. So when you have a mesh, you have to select something to be able to know which mode you want to be on onto that thing. So just a quick reference. This is where everything I'm going to be adding to the scene. They call this an outliner. So this is where this outliner, um, this is where everything you had, you can group it just like Photoshop. You can group it into, certain things. So just like Photoshop, you have that layers. So these are the layers here. So you have those layers, and you can be able to add anything, image, stuff, mesh, curves, and every other thing. So adding here, there are multiple things. You can add a cube. You can start anything from a cube. Like I said, everything always, once I add anything, it always comes to where this cursor is. So let me explain this thing in short. So this is for selection, nothing more. Just select. Once you select it, you won't be able to, there isn't any movement or any sign or anything. It's just to select something. When you have a full scene and you are looking, to just select something without moving it all of a sudden. So you go into this, and there are different types of selection. So if I left click on this thing, I press it down, I can see different types of selection. I can see the tweak, the box selection, the circle selection, and the lasso selection. So in future we are going to be talking about these ones, but I don't want to go into deep. I just want a short tutorial. So this is a cursor. This one is very important. Wherever if you select this, you will not be able to select anything, only move around the cursor. So you see this cursor that was in the middle, I'm able to move around. I'm able to put it in any part of, you know of the scene. So it hangs around, but if there is a mesh, it sticks to the mesh. But if it's just in the air, it stays like in the average point on any part. But if it's on the mesh, it goes to the mesh. Now, if I put a cursor here, maybe I have a scene here and I want to put, maybe this is like a building, and this building, I'm going to tell you a shortcut key to most things I'm coming. So this is the cursor. You can, when you select it, you'll be able to put the cursor anywhere. And when I add like a cube, it goes to where the cursor is. It doesn't come to the center anymore. So anywhere the cursor is where, just in case maybe your cursor is lost and you added something and you're looking for where the stuff is. So you should always look for your cursor wherever it is. I'm sure if you can zoom out, you'll be able to see your cursor anytime, anywhere. So you'll be able to find that model that you've added. So now we're moving to this is called the move. So as you can see, the axes are already showing. And this is not always where the cursor is. This is always where, if I select the move button, it's always to where the origin of whatever you're adding, the mesh you're adding, it always have this pivot. You would always see this small little dot wherever it is. You can place the little dot, the pivot anywhere, but it always comes at the center of the character. So now you can move things to the left, to the, I said forward and backward, which is the y-axis before, if you watched the previous video. So I said side to side, which is left to right, and up to down. So what I'm doing now is I'm making sure that my mouse, I'm not grabbing any other places. I'm making sure that my mouse highlights this blue line before I select it. I hold it down and I move it all around. So I can move it up and down. I would track this green line and I would hold it down to be able to move things. So now if you want to move it freestyling, you can just play at the center and you can just grab it and move it all around. So you need to play with this also. Grab it on the set. So I'm going to be telling you now the hotkeys. So to move is G, G for goat, to move things around. So if you press G, you are practically selecting the center, just like I did if I want to select the center here. Now I press G, the axes are gone because now I can move it around. But now I need to move it in a specific direction so that it can fit into something. So I can press Y axis to move it front and back. I can press X axis to move it side to side. I can press Z axis, which is Z. I'm just pressing the keyboard on my, so Z up and down. So that is the movements, and you need to be able to coordinate things very well. You need to be able to track. But with due time, if you practice it, you won't even know that you won't be selecting anyhow places to grab things. And if you want to move it in two alternating directions, you can select it there, and you move it in the two alternating direction or just freestyle. So we move to the rotate. Blender is very quite direct and straightforward. So you see here, if you go to the move button, you see G. If you go to this rotate button, you see shortcuts. If I stay longer there, it says shortcut key is R. So if I press R, I'll be able to rotate freestyle. And when I press R in the direction like X axis, I'll be able to move it in the in the alternating X direction. If I put it in Y, I'll be able to move it in the alternating Y direction. And if I move it in Z, I'll be able to move it all around, turning it all around in just one direction. So this is scale. Also this one, you scale it in a direction. You can scale it in this direction. Looks like move, but it's scale. Then you can scale it in all direction if you select the center. Sorry, yeah. So if you select the center, you can move it in all direction. Please be careful with this scale. You can zoom out to be able to see the length of the scale. So be careful. So now this scale, now I prefer using the hotkeys because this gives me more control, and I can just use S. If I go to the key here, scale, which is, you'll see it here, it says S. So it says S here as a shortcut key. It's always like that with default. So you press S to be able to scale it, in all direction. You press S, then you press Y to scale it front to back. You press S, and you press X to scale it in, just one direction. And you press S and Z to scale it in the opposite Z direction. So you can also do that by picking on this Z blue line and do it like this. Drag it with your left, not your middle mouse right now, um, with your left mouse button, and you can zoom it. You can scale it in and out. These things will be useful while we are working on modeling different things. So these are just the interface and how to use it. So I'm using G. When I select it, I just go there, I select it, I click on it by selecting it, and I press G and I move it around. I press S, I scale it around. I press R and I rotate it around. So, and if I'm not okay and I think maybe I'm going in the wrong direction, always press escape. So escape, which is to return it to where it was before you even press the key. So if you press the key and maybe you mistakenly right click and leave it like that, you can just press Ctrl Z to return it back to where it was, So right now I've added one cube, one plane, and one cube. So you would always see them in this layer or outliner. You always see them here. So you can rename them by double clicking on the stuff, just like maybe you want to rename any folder in your PC, and you can double click or you press this option, which is right click, and you come into um, you can come into yeah, you can come into ID data and you can rename. But that is a very long process. Just double click it and you can rename it into left cube, and you can just so that you can be able to identify what you're doing. So I double click it and I see this towards right cube. So then what's the plane, I can leave it like that. So here, this transform, it shows every other thing. So initially when I started using this, and I was like, okay, I would start using this transform because it does everything all in one. But when you have the shortcut key and you master the shortcut key, just press it doesn't matter anymore that this one has scale, it has move, and it has the rotate. So it's all in one. Anything you want to do, you can start with this maybe. So you must be very careful which one you're when you want to this top of this thing, you can grab it and to scale. Top of this thing, you can grab it and it will move. So that is how it is. Then you can grab just anywhere around this blue line and just rotate things. So get used to that. In this video, that is what we will be telling you. The rest are just this is just to write a notes on you know on the screen. Nothing much, but they use it in Grease Pencil also. So I'll just remove that. We will talk about that later when we are doing something serious. So right now, this is for measurements, and and this is just to add cube by measurements, something like that. So now I want you to go and just move things around at the center. I need you to move things around up and down. Don't do anything too ambiguous, and just move things around, and get used to having things, place things left, right, center, scale things up on y-axis, scale things up on x-axis. Make sure maybe you want them to fit in on the x-axis, and you want them to join at a certain point. You can go in x-axis and y-axis, and you can just move around with your middle mouse button and go to the move and move it. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to be able to align align them by scale, align them by no, I want this to be aligned together. So align them by scale, align them by s x. So know where the direction is, your x-axis, your y-axis. So you have something like this. So this is just a simple stuff. This can be said to be sy. So this can be two buildings and this can be a road. So this can be a building, and this can be a road. So you can just keep on doing that. So the next time we will talk about the rest of this, the modes properly, how to shape the modes help you shape the um, the mesh into several things that is meaningful, which you can do this, and then we can add more. We can add a sphere, a circle, all those things. You would learn it along the way as we move. So thank you very much. Um, this majorly talks about the selection tool, the cursor, what it does, the move, it explains the rotate in the scale, and this contains everything. Then it tells you how to harden a plane on a cube, and also tells you where it goes to. So if I add any plane right now or any cube right now, it goes to where the cursor is, and the cursor is there. So I'm going to give you just one last tip before I go. To return the cursor down to the center of the point where it was before, maybe you've lost it, you can press Shift S, press it down, and you can move with your mouse. Make sure you're pressing it down. I'm pressing Shift S right now down. Or if you want to allow it to stay without pressing it down, you can press Shift SS, so it stays and you can move your hand away. And um, so now you can return the cursor. This moves to the cursor, so you can return the cursor to the world origin. So the world origin is the center of where everything meets, where you start your work from. So whenever I add anything again, maybe it's a sphere, it goes down to the center. So thank you very much, and I hope you learned something from this.